Thank you very much, fellow Africans, and welcome to today's episode of the Change for Africa campaign. So, fellow Africans, being on Monday, it's all about our first pillar of the Change for Africa campaign. This being our 96th episode today, to help us exemplify our first pillar of the Change for Africa campaign, will be the UNSDG goal number 17. Remember, this week, every day will be quite prevalent because, as we see that. The remaining last 5 days, we are going to do 100 episodes. By the end of this week we will have done 100 episodes by Friday, meaning we are only using one UNSDG that we have not broadly targeted or broadly discussed about it. And also it's a very collective goal because it's all about the partnership of the goal. So today what I'll be doing is to try and say that there is a very huge need for the African countries to partner or to unite so that they can be able to deliver or they can be able to implement these goals, because these are goals that when you look at them, speaking about poverty, speaking about quality education, speaking about hunger, these are goals that are, number one, we need partnership in the areas of finance, technology, capacity building, trade, and systematic issues that are the policy implementation and all this. So really there are African countries are divided in a way that it is very difficult for some of these things to be able to be accomplished. So what you need is the partnership. The African countries need to realize that we have a problem in that area. That is why we are bringing this in the aspect of governance, because this is a global thing. The UNSDG goals, this is a global thing. But then remember, we are Africans and Africa is our business, so we discuss Africa. So what we are doing is that how are we going to see that African countries rather are able to unite, are able to partner in terms of how they can be able to make these goals a success. Because looking at what these goals have addressed, looking at all we have spoken about this goal, their key targets, these are things that they need a very good collaboration between member states of Africa, so that we can have, if we really need to discover, if you want to discover something positive out of these goals, if we do not partner as a governance systems of Africa, we are not going to have anything like change. And remember, this is Change for African campaign. So what we are calling for, it's all about the partnership of these goals. The African leaders should remember that for us to have a greater content, we must unite. That is why currently it might be a little bit difficult, because we all know the current state of Africa. Countries are divided, or regions of Africa are divided in a way that we have those who call themselves the Anglophones, the Francophones, and the Lusophones, are all these people. But then what we're trying to do is to break that narrative, to break that tradition of the Anglophone and the Francophone, all those things. We want a united Africa. We want a partner kind of Africa, whereby once we realize we are facing the same problem, we develop the same intention towards curbing that problem. And that is what we have said. Because remember, governance is the software of development. So for us to be able to make any difference, because looking at the UNSDG goals, these are global aspirations. But then Africa is part of the global people, it's part of the global stage. So how are we going to make sure that Africa is able to unite, is able to partner? First, Africa need to be a whole, one continent, fighting towards achieving one goal, which is about killing hunger, or eradicating hunger, eradicating poverty, having quality education in our schools, and all these things. So this is calling for a partnership among the African states, even if it's trying to go to other developed countries, and speak, they should go as a one continent of Africa, because other big countries in the world that are almost the size of Africa, these are countries that have come together in their own regions. Look at Europe, it's one of the largest trades in Europe. It's because they have a partnered governance system whereby all these governments come together, and then they are coming as a team. But then Africa needs to be one. That is why I was speaking that the governance is the software of development. Let the African governance system understand that. But then this is the Change for African campaign aimed at civilizing the African youth. So I believe perhaps it might be a little bit difficult to have that partnership very radical for now. But then since we are civilizing the African youth, as we go into the future, it will be very easy, because we will have a developed youth system that understands this need for them to partner so as to be able to achieve some of the very critical things. Because these are things that have been put in place, but when you look at them, they are these are issues that are very real. People are facing hunger. People do not have quality education in Africa. Look at the percentages. Look at the populations. There is needed something to be done. Something needs to be done, and that thing is first about the unity. Once we are united, we are a united continent, we are destined towards having a greater living standards and all these things. So this is about governance in relation to the partnership of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So fellow Africans, allow me to end at that point. At that point, have a greater time, and let's meet tomorrow to discuss about the partnership of the goals in relation to the potential of Africa. Thank you and have some great time. Thank you.